44. Good morning, everybody. Today's daf of Mem Daled from Maseches Ksubos. So we're discussing something we mentioned yesterday. Omar Mar, 3 lines in the top. And the way we go. Omar Mar, Iboy Bahai Gavia, Iboy Bahai Gavia. So the scenario is a case a woman produces 2 ksubas from the same husband, right? So if she wants, she can go ahead and collect 200 from the first one, right? For the one that was dated first, or 300, which was the amount of the second dated one. So she can choose. She can't take both, but she can choose either one, right? Each one has advantage, right? One's from earlier, one's from afterwards, right? So
why did she have 2 ksubos?
So why did she? I mean, this is what we discussed yesterday. But the husband either was to replace it or was to add an additional. So, but she had it in her hand. So she had it with her. Now, Lema pligi de Rav Nachman. Let's say this is Rav Nachman. Rav Nachman shtei shtaros hayotzi b'zachar zeh. So we're talking about shtaros, not ksubas, shtaros. And let's say it's a sale, right? So there's a sale. Shtei shtaros hayotzi b'zachar zeh. One of the others, they're different. They're dated. Well, one is dated January 1st, and the other one is dated February 1st. All right. So what does it say there? Bitul sheni asarisha. Since there's one dated February 1st, that nullifies the one January 1st. Right? There must have been. We'll soon see why was already written. Obviously, there was an issue with the first one. Right. So therefore, the second one is the sale document. That's when it's considered he sold him the land. Right? Nafka means would be that you got other people who have liens against the person. Hey, that land that you sold, you couldn't have sold it because it should have been, I had a lien on it. Well, it depends on which date he sold it, right? If it was the earlier date, then it's collectible. If it's from the later date, or it's an earlier date, right? Then perhaps that one's free. But if it's a later date, then maybe it's at risk, right? So he says, so notice it's different. The other one says you can choose either one. And this one seems to say the second one is the legitimate one. The other ones, it was nullified. So we're asking, no, lav me tomorrow law was that what I said on it. I'm a Rav Papa. Rav Nachman the Oisei Beidikla l'Tosefes Ksiva. That if there's something else which is written in addition to it, right, an extra parcel, an extra part from the sale, then it's not something that nullifies the first one. It's in addition, right? Because it's changing. As far as like this, if it's an identical piece of land, why is he rewriting it? He's rewriting it, right? Because it was wrong, right? But if it's not identical, there's added another parcel, right? Another half acre. It means that that this is in addition. So in other words, the first part was, that was included, that the first original sale goes back from that date, and the other part was added on at a later date. And Achanami.
So it makes the second one the real one.
Right, but it means that the first one it was purchased at that time of the first one. In other words, and that's when
a lien is a lien on the property, not a lien on the deed. So I don't understand.
So right. So let's say somebody lends him money in the middle, right? Lends the guy money in January 15th. And doesn't pay it back. So the lender says, okay, where's the money? I don't have money. So I'm taking your land, right? So now, if we say the first document was nullified, that means the entire sale, the entire property was done February 1st. If it's done February 1st, then he can have a claim on that land. But if the land was sold earlier, like if it was dated January 1st, then even though there was an additional amount, we forgot to include the tree and the other half acre. So that half acre was never written right on the title or whatever from the first sale document, but whatever was written in the first sale document still stands, and it was sold on that date, January 1st.
More is nothing specific than about saying that in the second document there's only the additional piece. Because otherwise, everything is in the second document, then you spill over the money.
Oh, right, correct. In other words, it means in addition, it's not just the tree he's adding, right? It's not just the smaller part, right? It was
No, it has to be just the tree.
no, but
Otherwise, everything that was in the first document would be there.
right, but they're rewriting it,
Yeah.
right? As if they're rewriting it correctly. But the first part was also correct. It just wasn't all inclusive.
Again, we're talking about, well, in the case of a ketubah, not this, in the case of a ketubah, it goes by the date of the wedding.
Right. So that's a little different. So right now we're trying to compare the two and see if we can compare the two. Right now, strictly when it comes to the sale, basically what it means is whatever's included in the first one is legit. The second one, it adds additional land. Let's say so that acre. So that wasn't covered under the first sale. Doesn't mean the first sale was wrong. It just means now that one is considered to be sold or transferred from the seller to the buyer only at the later date of February 1st, not January 1st. But the other areas, right, the other 10 acres would be included in the January 1st one.
Okay.
It's as if the guy did like a refi.
But it gets included. There was other stuff that was in the property, but that stuff
Right.
wasn't legally on it.
Right.
So let's see. So Hakanami. So it says the Oisifa Dika Sevis. Hakanami. So in this case, Oisifa, right? Amidi. Over here, we must be talking about a case, right? We said it was a 200 for the first date, right? Or 300 for the second date of the Ksuba, right? The one was written by the Shas of Erison, right? Perhaps one was written by the. But the point is that since the second one was larger, we said it was 300, it's Tosefes. So it's no different. So therefore, that's the reason why. If she wants the first one, she grabs the first one, right? And if she wants to use the latter one, so take the latter one. And Gufa Amrav Nachman Shteshtaras Hayitzi Mizachas Epitos Shani Esarisha. The second one of us verses. Amrav Papa Maided Rav Nachman the Eisiva Dikla Tosefes, right? Kasve. Right, that if it's adding something on, then it's it doesn't nullify it. It was adding something else. Now, pshita rishon b'mecher v'sheni b'matana. If the first one was written as a sale, and the second one was a matana, liyafas kaikahu the kasavei. Right, certainly it doesn't nullify it. Right, because there was a reason why he gave them the second one. Right, b'shum dinit the bar mitzvah. Because halakha bar mitzvah, because the halakha bar mitzvah only goes by a sale. In other words, if there's a guy on the other side of the property, right, that says, "Hey, he sold it to you. I have first rights. I'm going to buy it. You find yourself another piece of land." So therefore, the second shtar, which is a shtar matana, doesn't give him the option of dinah damar bar mitzvah, and therefore, the second one was written not if it was identical, then it nullifies it. But it's not identical. He wrote him a shtar, a month later to strengthen his position on the land to say, okay, now this I'm also giving this as matana. The kol sheken certainly rishon matana. The first one was a gift, and the second one was b'mecher, right? Was a sale document. Mishum dina the balchov the kasuket, right? The balchov, right? Choose the case of the loan before. Loans don't go ahead of liens unless it was on the property, right? But normally, in the case a person owes someone money, right, and then he gives away his assets as a matana, you can get those matana back. If he sells it, then you have a tougher time getting it back. So therefore, if the second one's a sale document, certainly he gave it to him. He's not nullifying the first one. He's just strengthening his position on the land. Rather, if both of them are shtar mechiras or both of them are shtar matanas, then we say the second one nullifies the first one. My timer. What is the reason for that? So machlokes. So Rafa Mamar Amar Odile. He's basically, so in this case, he's basically admitting, right? He's admitting that that it was mezuyaf, right? That it was forged, the first one, right? In other words, and therefore the first one was forged, and this is the real one. And Rav Acha Amar Achui Achle Lishibude, right? So Rav Acha says no, that he is being meichel, right? That the shibud from the earlier time. In other words, that he's saying that really it was from the first time, but I'm giving up the rights that I bought from January. I'll say I bought the rights, or I bought the land from February, right? So if someone happens to really have a lien on it during the middle of January, then I'm sort of put myself in a bad position. So what's the nafkamina? in this case, why one is bittul the other one? Samai benayu siki benayu. First of all, Uri Sahadi, right? First of all, to go ahead and passel the Eidim, right? Because if the first one was forged and you have these witnesses who signed the forged documents, then now they're going to come passel the Eidim in the future. And also, right, if who owned the fruits? If the guy said it was forged and he didn't really buy it till February 1st, so therefore the buyer has to go ahead and pay back the seller for those fruits. And the third thing is Utaska for taxes, right? So who was the real owner of the property? If it was forged, then the buyer wasn't the real owner. If it wasn't forged, right, he was just being Michael. So therefore, Lamaisa still pays for the taxes then. So my habila de ksuba. So what is that law when it comes to the ksuba? Woman produces two ksubas. So Tashma is common list as Marcus or reference for them. Rav Hudam or Shmuel, Meshum Eliezer, Rav Shimon, Mana Masayim, the 100, 200 Mena Eris. Those are from the Erisin. Those get collected from the date of the betrothal. The Tosefes min hanasuan, and any additional amounts, right, over and above the standard 100 for beulabs and 200 of psula, Tosefes min hanasuan. The say no, right? They always go from the time of the nisuan. That's what they did. Both the manamasaim and the Tosefes are both min hanasuan. Fine. Nine Mishnah at the bottom, Mandal Ralph. So Hagir.
Why was it splitting up? This from the Erison, this from the Suan.
So that's what we discussed yesterday. That was the whole piece of the going from yesterday, right? In other words, it was in Mishabit from the time of when it was written, right? It's obvious that our Mishnah, the previous Mishnah, held that there is a ksuba when it comes to Erison. And others hold that no, once you go ahead and the suin is basically you're redoing it and now it's starting new. And therefore that was what the Chum said, that basically that the Shiva, the time of the when you can go ahead and collect the lands, it goes at this date. Mishnah says, so a woman that converted, Bita Ima, right, a mother and a daughter, right? Not we don't really care so much about the mother right now. So a girl, she Mizgayer, Vizinsa, and she was Mizana. Hare ze bechenek. She gets chenek. What's going on here? Yo, what are you talking about? So I'm going to bring the pasuk on the side. By those of you who have the article, the one pasuk is written. Pasuk says, right, the sugya vaytziu es hanar el pesach beisavia. Right, talking about a man who is engaged, right, a nara murasa, and she is between the age of 12 and 12 and a half, and she was engaged, betrothed, right. And she was Nazana, right? So the lach is
between the Usim too.
Right, between the Erison and the Suin. Vaitzias and Nara Pesach Beisavia, where you bring her to her father's house, the Saklua, I'm just reading the pasuk, and you stone her. All right, and Sheira Be'avanim Umeisa, she dies, he also available Israel, these nice Beisavia, because we are to have every Quebec. Right? So over there, so we see that a Namarasa, her punishment is stoning at her father's house. Now, if she's a Giores, right? She's a Giores, we'll soon see why. She doesn't get stoning. She doesn't get skila. She gets bechenek, different misa. All right, we'll soon see why. Ein Lopez, and also not only that, Ein Lopez Beisav. We don't do chenek at her father's house. Now there's another halacha. If the guy was lying, he says this girl's mazan, this 12-year-old girl's mazan in between. Turns out he was a liar. He made it up. So now he has to pay a penalty to the father for spreading these rumors, being motzi shemra about the daughter. He has to give her mea sela. So in this case, there is no mea sela.
Why she's a Gior? So
even if she's a Gioris, even if it was a Gioris before the age of 3, we'll soon see why, because the pasuk uses the word Yisrael, is B'daf Yisrael, not a Gioris. That we'll see. Now, if she was conceived while she was a guy, then her mother went ahead and converted while she was pregnant, and she was born while her mother was a Jew. Now she can get skiva. Congratulations. However, still there is no requirement of Pesach Besav, and there also is no payment 100 sela if the guy is lying. If this convert really, the mother was a convert, was a convert, but she converted before she became pregnant. So she became a Giores, then she conceived, and gave birth to Kedusha. She's a basra like every matter, and therefore the skila will take place by the father's house, so on and so forth. And yesh la'av, if she has a father, vein la'pesach beis av, but he's homeless, he doesn't have a doorway, or yesh la'pesach beis av, or she has her father's house, vein la'av, but he was nifter, harei zu beskila, she gets skila. And you don't say, well, there's no father, can't do skila. No. She gets skila. However, pesach beisav elements. So that's the proper way to do it, but it's not ma'akev, right? It doesn't prevent you from carrying out if the guy's homeless and says, that's that would be her her attorneys would try and argue that. Doesn't work. Fine. Turn the page. Mem daled amud beis. Zok the Gemara. Menohani mili. From where we know is from. And we're talking about that if she was conceived while her mother was still a Ovedes Kochavim, and then the mother converted, and then she was born to her Jewish mother, right? So it's conceived Shalom B'Kedusha and Leidas B'Kedusha. So how do you know that's skila? We included that skila. So the pasuk says Umeisa, right? Pasuk says Vameisa. Right? An additional word, right? Right? Then it says Bamesa, she dies. Let's say Mesa again. So the rabbi said to include the extra word comes to include a woman or a girl who was conceived while her mother was still a non-Jew, and then but however was born as a Jew. And if that's the case, if that's the case, well, why do we also include her? If the father was lying, the Mitzi Shemra, he's Chayiv Malchus in such a case, and he should also pay the 100 sela. Why is he excluded from that? If you're saying she's a Jew and she can get skila, right? So then she's like a Jew that he spread rumors about that the man should be punished for saying these rumors. So Makra, the Mesa. It says, what was it? The Mesa, La Misa Nisra Bavlo Knas. In other words, that which we include an extra pasuk to include this girl who was conceived as a non-Jew but born as a Jew, that's only when it comes to the actual misa, i.e. the skila. But now when it comes to the malchus or the knas. Why don't we say no? Maybe who says it's talking about a girl who's conceived shalom kedusha and then born as a Jew? Maybe we're talking about somebody who was conceived and born. Her mother was a giros, but who was conceived and born as a Jew. So I said, what are you talking about? How you says that's a full-fledged Jew. She was conceived and born as a Jew. Even the rabbis harasav leidas shalom kedusha. Maybe we're talking about a girl who was a full convert, or in other words, even if she was conceived and born as a non-Jew, then converted with her mother, same game. But Yisrael, anyway, what does the word Yisrael in the pasuk mean? Right? But it's not right. She says, "Asta nevela be Yisrael." Obviously, so you teach you something. It's teaching you that if someone was a Gurus, then she doesn't get skila, and therefore the extra pasuk of Mesa comes to include that a girl who was conceived, even though she was conceived shalom b'kedusha, as long as she was born a Jew, then she could be chayiv skila as a namarasa. And Amar Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Chanina Hamaisi Shemer Ali Yisayma Pat. One who's he is Matzi Shemra, but he's about an orphan girl is Pater Shnamar V'Nasul of the Nara. It says he gives it to the father of the Nara. So Parlazu Shemla will exclude anybody that doesn't have a father. So if she doesn't have a father, now he married an orphan, and he said, I didn't find the Basulim, she must have been Mizana with somebody else, and it turns out he was lying, right? It was impossible for that to happen. Okay, I don't have to pay anything because there's no father. Technicality.
I would put 200 for the
yeah. So Rabbi Yossi bar Avin and Rabbi Yossi bar Zvida. The pasuk says, "V'ma'in yumain avia." Now he violates her, right? So he has to give him money, right? That was the case, I think, in the case of the Mafata, right? So over there. So, but however. So if he seduces her, he should marry her. But if the father doesn't want him to marry his daughter, right? So Aviyah. So who does that come to include? The rabbis. He's saying the knas, right? To include also that the daughter gets the knas. In other words, over there it says if he doesn't want him to marry, so you pay the fine, right? So what's the double lashon of ma'in yima'in? Even if she didn't have a father. It was just her, right? So she doesn't want to marry him. I'll take the money and get out of here. Hit the road, Jack. So what do you see over here? That just because you have a father, don't have a father, that you don't lose the technicality of, you got to pay your father. It's no father. I don't have to pay anybody. No, it doesn't work. Basically. So we're answering now. Who must have been Maybe we're talking about a case of, in the case of where she has an option to get the money, that's referring to when the father was alive at the time of when she was violated, and he died afterwards at the time of the payment. So then she could say, okay, I'll take the money. But maybe in the case of where the father was never alive when she was violated or when he lied about her, maybe then you'd be completely pater from the kanas. However, Rav Amar Chayiv. Rava says, Yechayiv of Hamaitzi Shemra Abadi Yisrael. Why is that? Mimai. Midatani Ami Basulas Yisrael Basulas Gate. So it says over there that what it says Basulas Yisrael. Right, we talked about Yisrael, the pasuk says Yisrael, so we talked about Davka Yisrael and not Ger. Right, that was a drasha. Now, by Motzi Shema, it's Yisrael, not Ger. Now, if you say in this situation, now, what is a Gyaras? A Gyaras is we consider halachically as somebody, right, for sure, without a father, right? Their father, because their father was a guy, right, and then they converted, right, so they don't have a halachic father. So all Gyaras, right, and let's say a Nara at that age, would be considered to be a Yisoma, an orphan, because she doesn't have a father. Right. So all Gyaras are like that. Now, so when someone is an orphan, in other words, when it's a Jewish girl without a father, Mechayev, that's why I need a pasuk to tell you that a ger, right, who is basically a Yisoma, doesn't get a knas, because a Yisrael who is a Yisoma does get a knas, even if she doesn't have a father. Right, and that's what I was father. Eliyamar to be shel chaygavna pater. But if you're telling me we said earlier that since the girl is an orphan, she doesn't have a father, right? You don't have to pay the kanas. So why do you need a pasuk to teach me, right, that a ger doesn't get a kanas? Because we know that because she doesn't have a father. Yisrael's like that, right? Hasha be shel pater begerim boy, right? So therefore. So, of course, it has to be chayav. So that was Rava's proof. So Rava says, by the fact that you need a pasuk to tell you that a Gyaras, there is no fine, it must be that Yisrael in a similar situation, i.e., she doesn't have a father, she gets the fine of a person Moshe Shemra. And Amar Reish Lakish, Moshe Shemra al Katana, Pater, one is Moshe Shemra al Katana, right? Let's say the girl is below the age of 12. Pater, Shnamar, Vanasal, be Hanara. So Nara Validover has to be a complete Nara. No, she has to be the age of 12. She can't be younger. Now over here, the way the pasuk is written, most oftentimes when it was written Nara, it's Nun Ayin Resh. There's no Hey. Over here it says Nara with the Hey at the end. So the Hey tells you that it has to be a full Nara, i.e., not including a Katan. Now, only because it's Hanara completely. Holav Hachi have if you look down with a Katana. But the pasuk says Haksim the MS Haya Hadavar Hazeh right? If the matter is true, it was not Moshe Shemra. He was not telling a lie. She was Mizana Tachtov, and we go ahead and we hang her. So the Katana Lavas Anshinu you can't, there's no death penalty, right, when it comes to a katana. So obviously we're not talking, the pasuk doesn't need to tell me that it's only a nara, not a katana. I already know it can't be referring to a katana because the pasuk is talking about if the person is in fact guilty, you stone him. So Ela Kan Nara, rather over here we're saying that it says Nara with the hey, Kol Makashin Amar Nara, Afilo Katana B'mashma. Oh, Nara is saying that even in the cases, can't teach you that no, when it says Nara without the hey, then it means in those cases that even it was referring to a young minor.
Can Nara get married without permission of the father? Or is the father gives over?
The father is the one who gets the kesef, the rights.
Converted Nara get married.
So
She doesn't get
So it has to be Aldas, I guess Aldas based in, perhaps.
No, but
But Nara is always, it's funny because Nara has different halachas. By the way, we're going to stop here. So so now Sunday 6:40, right? 6:40 no, but so maybe I'll just stop here. Are we good? No, but a Nara is quasi. No, it's not. She's not exactly katana. It's not exactly. Though in certain issues, certain rights, she's considered to be a bardas, right? But when it comes to kesef kedushin, her father has the right to sell her and to marry her off. And as
Father or brother.
she has a father or brothers, I think that I assume Basin has to do it because we know cases that like a Gioris, right, is done out as Basin, right, or a Ger, right. One is Misguy or I'll be Basin, so Basin can act on their behalf. But in the case of Nara, we have to see. I think this what's it called? This parak deals with Nara.